Hi, everybody. This is your old pal, Uncle Hondo, your Sports Illustrated beat writer covering the Las Vegas Raiders. Thanks for joining me. Well, depending on when you're watching it, could be tonight, could be this morning. The Raiders just concluded their first practice in pads, and I have a plethora of notes to go over with you, a lot of stuff to talk about with you from practice. We put some video up inside practice today, team practice with them going at it, offense and defense going at it against each other. It was a spirited day to say the least. It was very, very spirited. The offense came out with a chip on their shoulder. And let me tell you, I right up front, defense won the day, but they have what I believe to be the best defense in the entire NFL. And for anyone that would scoff at that, and trust me, there are, after AP took over, the Raiders statistically did have the best defense in the National Football League. And all they did was, oh, by the way, add Christian Wilkins. So I don't think there's any reason to expect this defense to go backwards. They are that caliber of a defense. And, they have been doing a lot of talking, a lot of chirping since January. Well, actually, they did it before January, but going down the stretch. And the offense has had to hurt it here, has heard it, has had to listen to it. And I've been telling you all along, when there's no pads, it's the underwear Olympics. Steve Smith, the former famous wide receiver, said that it was his terms, and I love that term. Um, and I kept saying to you, got to wait till pads, got to wait till pads. Well, the pads came on today, and no doubt, I believe the defense was ahead of the offense, but I believe that's going to be the story at the end of the year. I think the offense showed up and showed out very well. Again, very well considering that they're going against what I believe is the best defense in the National Football League. We're going to get into all of it tonight. Or today, whenever you're listening, but we are going to break it down and literally take you inside a camp. But to start it off, it was spirited. I think um, the very first drills, when the pads were popping, you could see the edge on the offensive line. They were playing angry. Again, it was not playing like the defense was their enemy, because they're not. They've built a great team, but it was certainly playing like, okay, you know what? You've talked since January. You talked through OTAs, you talked through mini camps, you talked through training camp. Now it's our chance. And they came out popping. I mean, they came out bam, bam, bam. It was very physical, very physical. You may remember last year I told you that I was very impressed with the physicality of last year's first day in pads with Josh McDaniels, and I was. And I think everybody was a little surprised by it. This was much more physical. And I will tell you this, and the only reason I'm even reminding you of last year is because I don't say it every year. In fact, this is only 2 years in a row that I've said it. Today was the most physical first day in pads I've ever seen in an NFL training camp of all the teams I've covered. Um, the Raiders came out with the intention that we are going to practice running the football. And that's exactly what they did, because they haven't been able to really practice running the football because it has to be done in pads. And they came out first time since January when they played the last game of the season, and they ran the football. I mean, I would say it was 85 to 90% rushing. Lots of running of the football today. Very, very physical. Now, you could tell it was the first time that they've run the football since January. We'll get into all of that, I promise, but it was very, very physical. It was attacking. AP had Richie Incognito come in and talk to the team last night. Well, depending on when you're watching this, it was on Monday night, but um, it was, and he inspired the team, and it was a very, very physical practice. The offense has had a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and today, now with pads, it was, again, the defense still won, but it was a different ball game. It was a different ball game. So let's talk about that for a minute, because The pads were popping, but the offensive line was very physical. I can tell you under Coach Craig and Luke Getzey, um, there was not last year. They switched when AP took over and went more to a zone. They wanted to go to a wide zone, which is fine. But I like the wide zone. I think the more of the field that you make the defense have to cover, it creates more seams and makes you a better offense. That's my opinion. I know a lot of people share it, but I believe that's 100%. Make people defend the entire field, spread them out so that they're not loading a box. Spread them out so you're creating space. This offensive line came out on the attack. They were angry, they were chippy, and they were ready for a fight. They wanted a street fight. They wanted today's practice to be taken care of in a telephone booth. And the defense was more than willing to oblige. It was very, very physical. Very, very physical. I'll talk to you about a couple of things that stood out to me and as we go. Very first, I want to make this point because I've talked about it a lot. I've talked about Dylan Laube's size. I've talked about him playing very well, but we were going to have to see in pads. I saw. I will not, and I said to you at the time, it's not that I doubt him. It's just coming from New Hampshire. I've got to see it. I'm from Missouri. I'm not from Missouri, but the show me zero. Let me explain to you how I took Dylan Laube. In fact, I presented this to somebody in the Raider organization, and they thought it was a perfect analogy. He reminds me, and most of you are too young to remember this, but when I was a kid, our video games were called pinball. And by the way, if you don't know what it is, go to the pinball museum in Vegas the next time you're in Vegas. It is cheap and it's fun, and you get to play all these old games that those of us who grew up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s got to play. And it's basically a ball that bounces off everything. I saw some guys that lined up to tattoo Dylan Laube. Now, I want to make this super clear. His teammates like him. So this is not wanting to tattoo him because they don't like him, because I have seen that. I've seen it a lot. Someday when I write my book, you're going to hear about some of those stories. But um, he they came out. He's a rook. He's gotten a lot of attention, and then they want to welcome him to the NFL moment. Uh, One particular Raider player just drilled him, and he does 2 steps back, immediately forward again. Um, again, not calling him Barry Sanders because he's not, and I know and respect Barry. That would be unfair to Barry, and it would be unfair to Dylan because it's just not even close to accurate. But one area of talent that he has that does match him to Barry Sanders is Barry could stop and then immediately be at full speed with 1 step. That's Dylan Laube. They would hit him, he'd go back, and then continue to go forward. That young man is a football player, and every single day, I think his team's falling in love with him. He's getting reps with the ones and the twos. Do I think he's going to be the number one running back? No, but they're creating places for him to be on the field. He's the kind of guy that you have to create places for him to get on the field. He is a difference maker. Great attitude. He got drilled today and stepped back, kept going. And you could hear the entire offense just begin to just roar. It was a roar. I don't even know how to explain it, as they just drew energy from him. This young man now, and again, to the best of my ability, I don't know his family and not met him. I say that because I've met so many of the families, and from time to time, um, I'll see them and they'll remind me, "You met me," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." Um, but that man was just has a relentless work ethic. His parents, his family, y'all raised a young man with a work ethic now. He is a hard worker. And he is just out there. He's wanting to play the defensive part of special teams, the offensive part of special teams. He wants reps with the offense. I am convinced if they said to him, "Hey, after practice, we want you to jump on a gator." And for those of you that aren't familiar with the rural lifestyle, it's like a tractor. I don't literally mean a gator, but they're called gators. Jump on a gator. We want you to go pick up all the cones. Labe would be like, "Yes, sir. Let's go." He's just so excited to be in the NFL, and you can tell this is a kid that had a dream his whole life to play in the NFL, and he is thrilled that he's here. And while he's here, he is going to make the most of it. There was a movie years ago that started Mark Wahlberg. It was a true story about a guy who walked on to play for the Philadelphia Eagles. I believe the gentleman's name was Vince Popio, who just loved the game. That's Dylan Laube. Dylan Laube. Kid is just fun to watch. His teammates love him. He made a great play and he walks over to an offensive lineman to thank him. And then he's so little, just a tiny little feller, and they're tapping him on the head, just like, "Yeah, good job, little buddy." And it was just fun to watch. And he even brought energy to the defense. This is one thing that AP has done exceptionally well. These guys are so competitive, but yet they are a team. I said it before, I'll say it again. Closest team I've ever covered. And so even when he does something against the defense, they're ticked off about it, but they're so happy for him. And I'm going to say right now, after what I saw, I will never again on a podcast say to you, "Well, we got to see about that kid's toughness." That kid took a beating today. And every time, just thank you. May I have more? That was fun. And it was fun listening to the crowd. One guy yelled at me out of the crowd. He goes, "Hondo, you better talk about him in the podcast." So I am, brother. And I told him I'm going to. It was a great day for him. It was just a great day for him, and I was very happy. As you know, I've been singing his praises, and I wanted him to do it, and I was glad that he did. I want to talk about um, turnovers today. The Raiders made it a very strong emphasis on the run game, and there were several fumbles. I'm going to get into those right now. There was only one interception, and I'm going to talk about that interception and explain it. I heard some people talking about it behind me, and they didn't. Um, there was a couple things about it that they did not um, understand. So we're going to talk about that fumble today. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks, I mean that interception, but I want to talk about fumbles. It's the first time that they've padded and run the football in 6 months. So you expect that the first day of run heavy with pads, that is a normal thing. Now, I think there's probably a few more fumbles than normal, so I'm not trying to present it as, "Oh, it was all peaches and cream." There were too many fumbles. Um, but when you watched them, it wasn't like Zamir White was out there or having a fumble issue. There wasn't really fumble issues with Dylan or even Madison uh, or Amir. It wasn't like it was just one person, but some of the other guys there were, which is fine. Um, doesn't mean all of them were fumble free, but it made sense. It was not anything of which I am overly concerned, and you know me good enough that I would tell you if I was. I'm going to watch that really closely tomorrow. But Zamir White cut up field on one particular play and against Matthew Butler and trucked him. And Butler did everything right. And Zamir looks stronger. He looks bigger. He looks faster, and he looked like a train. Matter of fact, There were so many times today the crowd was yelling, "Zeus!" I mean, he just did stuff. And, I would say to you, I had a bunch of people email me, "Oh, other media are concerned about the offense." Well, I don't comment on other media's reporting. That's their reporting. Um, but I said to you I was not greatly concerned, and after the first day in pads, I'm not. In fact, if I had to be very blunt with you, I would say the offense was probably a little bit better, not much, but a little bit better than I even thought they were going to be today. I'll talk to you about that interception here in a minute. Aiden O'Connell, very quick update, and I'm going to talk about him and Gardner more in a minute. Coming into today, I told you I thought he was the starter. I felt like he had increased his lead over camp. Um, I believe that today um, he took another step forward in in being the guy. He was driving the football, and I was very impressed with the way he delivered the football. There was one particular play where there was pressure everywhere, and bam, he just took off. And he ran the ball, I'm going to guess 12 yards before he was even touched. That was really special to see. Again, you saw him move around laterally, which is, still staying behind the line of scrimmage. There was a beautiful play where he moved laterally, bought himself about an extra three-quarters of a second, and delivered the ball downfield on a 17-yard strike. He just played very, very well. Now, he did have the only interception, and I think it's very important to talk to you about the interception. Um, I want to find my note here. Um, so there was an interception today. It's a timing route. It's where a quarterback has to throw a ball in a specific place. And the Raiders defense was lined up. The receiver comes off the line of scrimmage. He gets interfered with, so he was late to his spot. The ball gets thrown, the ball gets picked off. That's against Aiden. But again, it's a timing route. So it's one where does it go against him? Absolutely. I'm not making an excuse for it. That's why I'm talking about it. But it was also a timing route. And it just happened. But he threw a lot of balls. And we're going to get into some of the throws today. I mean, just some of the deep throws. Just that young man, I said it last year, he just has a howitzer. And again, doesn't mean that everything today was rosy. There were some things that concern me, and I'm going to get to those. But and my concerns were not with Aiden or with Gardner. Um, but I do believe he's expanded his lead. Um, I have no reason to doubt that, whether it's my opinion or when I talk to people. I have no idea how they're going to handle, preseason games. Will Aiden start? Will Minshew start? I quite frankly don't think it really matters. So I'm not worried about it. But I would just say to you that I believe Aiden has separated himself. And I'm just very impressed with his throwing. I think he still can clean it up a little bit more. I think there's a way that he can make his throwing motion a little bit faster. Um, Dan Marino was the gold standard of a quick release, and he's a generational player. So I'm not saying he has to be Dan Marino, but I think there's space to tighten up his throwing and to get the ball out quicker. Um, I think Gardner has a little bit of a quicker throwing motion, but I also think sometimes he relies on his athleticism and to buy more time. And I think so. I think that's concerning as well. So, anyways, I think Aiden has expanded his lead. He's done nothing to hurt himself at all. I love now that it's been multiple practices. We've seen him take off and run, and that's exactly what they want. Now, you can develop gunslinger, and I am very familiar with Aiden's career. As you know, I covered the Big Ten before I moved to Vegas 5 years ago to cover the Raiders. Um, and he had that gunslinger um, attack mode at Purdue. Not, I'm not trying to pretend like a Patrick Mahomes level because it's not, but he was more than he was last year. And I've gone into reasons ad nauseum why he wasn't that way last year. But I think he's very comfortable with it. I think he's very, very comfortable with where he is in the competition. Um, I know there are some people that would probably tell you, well, he's feeling the pressure. I don't think Aiden O'Connell feels any pressure. I really sincerely don't. Um, again, I covered him in the Big Ten. His whole career, he's been behind the eight ball. And so he has his entire career had to compete. And so the competing does not bother him. He is competitive. He's as competitive as anybody now. And there was one particular play today where it was really fun to watch him. He made a great play, and I can't talk about the play specifically because if I did, I would be giving away schematic information, which is unfair to the Raiders. I'm not going to do that, nor do I think Raider Nation wants me to. But he was very emotional, very competitive. And when he turned around, Max Crosby just kind of tapped him on the rear end, like, attaboy. It was fun. And so I like it. I don't think Aiden's done anything to hurt himself. Now, again, Gardner, I don't think Gardner's hurt himself at all. It's just I told you a few days ago, Gardner threw 2 interceptions. And after that, I think he has been more careful with the ball, which is great. You want that from him. But Gardner having to be careful means he's a little bit less gunslinger, and a little bit less gunslinger means he's a little bit less who he is. So I don't think Gardner's feeling the pressure. I really sincerely don't. And you say, wait a minute, how can you have two quarterbacks not feeling the pressure? Because I think they both are competitors. And they're both very, very close. I can tell you this, they are friends, they are close. And they're constantly communicating, constantly talking. You can tell they're helping one another. Um, it's refreshing to see. Very, very refreshing. I have not seen a quarterback battle like this one. Last year, Jimmy Garoppolo, um, the Jimmy Garoppolo and then Aiden O'Connell, once he started getting all the hype of the preseason, Jimmy was very warm to Aiden. Jimmy was helpful to Aiden, but there still was an element of competition. Again, there's the element of competition here, but in they're competitive. But it is like Gardner's biggest cheerleader is Aiden, and Aiden's biggest cheerleader is Gardner. It's really unique. It's something I have not seen before. I'm going to watch develop, and I'm going to talk to uh, Antonio about it later, maybe before they break camp. And I'll write about that between the end of camp and end of the preseason and the start of the season. Um, I want to talk about a couple of young men that I have not talked about on this podcast ever before. We know the top three wide receivers are settled. We know that Devontae, Jacoby, Trey. But there's two, potentially three wide receiver jobs open. And I'm going to talk about that later. But the reason I mention that is, do they go with another corner? Do they go with a wide receiver? The point is, I mean, we know there's going to be 5 wide receivers, but I'm talking about a potential. What if they go with a sixth? What if they add another corner? I will tell you that there's been some changes to my projected 53-man lineup. And I'll talk to you more about that in a little bit. But the original 53 prediction, which I always tell you I'm going to change and give you after the season, and then obviously we'll wait and see how the new one comes out, is different. I think there's some guys that have played themselves onto the bubble, which means when I predicted them, they were going to make it, but I think they've played themselves on the bubble. And then I think there's some guys who've um, certainly gotten the attention of the team. So let's talk about a couple of these guys. They're both corners. First is Cornell Armstrong. He's in his 5th year. He's out of Mississippi State. He's a corner. Today on special teams, now you have to understand when you start getting to those bottom few roster spots, special teams is going to determine who makes that. Cornell is a vet, and he really played well today on special teams. I was pleasantly surprised. In fact, let me just say this. I was there were a couple plays where he made, and I was like, wow, just where he was in special teams and the way that he played stuff. I'm not ready to say he's made the team because if they may had to pick a roster today, I don't think he'd make it. But the young man is moving up. And if he continues to perform well, he could win a spot. I'll give you another guy. Um, Rayshard Williams. He's a rookie from Texas Tech. He's another corner. Special teams to play. That kid can fly down the field. Wow. I mean, there's an old saying, there's a difference between fast and quick. I've not seen enough from Rayshard to tell you that he's fast, but I saw him twice today. Quick. I mean, he looked like that old cartoon, The Flash. Matter of fact, the first play he made, I'm like, who is that? I had to look his name up on the roster. Just, I mean, he made a play, and I thought, and I see you, young blood. I see you. And then a couple minutes later, he did it again. I'm like, good night, Irene. Um, so I want you to just keep those names in the back of your head. Again, I am not implying, nor am I saying that either one of those young men is a solid, that they've made the team. If they had to pick today, I don't know that either one would. But both young men are now on the radar. Now, let me go back and talk to you about Armstrong. He's 5'11, 182. And yeah, he's 5'11 and 182. And again, just they're on there now. They're getting noticed. If you are, and again, best of my knowledge, I don't know their families, but if if their families at home watching and praying that they get opportunities, those two young men are making plays, which is all you can ask for. It's what training camp's about. It's going to become a grind. We start getting to Saturday, we get to the first of next week, and it's grinding out, and guys are sore. Remember, I said this to someone today before practice. This is the healthiest this team's going to be now for the rest of the year. And now guys got bumps and bruises and injuries. They're going to have to fight through them now for the rest of the year. But I just want to say, Rayshard Williams and Cornell Armstrong, we see you. We see you. And Cornell's been around a lot longer, 5 years. But for Rayshard, coming from Texas Tech, a UDFA rookie, dreams to play in the NFL. Young man, you've done everything that you can do, and you've made plays. You've kept your mouth shut. You've worked hard. Your teammates have seen it. Your coaches have seen it, and it stood out. So congratulations to those two young men. I want to talk to you about Aiden O'Connell. A couple passes today. It would be unfair of me to sit up here day after day and not be analytical. That is my job. And I have been accused at times of people say, well, Hondo's too rosy. No, I'm just not overly negative. There are some people, when anything happens, they automatically go to the negative. I look for reasons why things happen. Yep, AOC threw an interception. 100% correct. But then you got to ask the why. Okay, is it because he made a bad throw? I told you the other day, he threw a ball away, got intercepted. It was after a sack. So it was one that wouldn't have been thrown in a game. So to me, it was minimized. Okay. I also told you the other day, he threw a ball and I said, unacceptable. He cannot throw that pass. So I'm going to be critical of a couple players today. And I'm going to tell you why. First of all, both players I have extremely high expectations of. And both of them made plays that are not going to keep them off the team, but there are plays they can't make. Now, it was one day, first day in pads. I am not over stressing it, but it's still my job to be analytical. And it is still my job to um, still my job to put it out there because that's how you watch for a pattern. Now, I have had nothing but praise about Trey Tucker the entire offseason. He has gotten bigger, faster, stronger. His hands are better. I told you the other day, I don't think he's dropped a ball in practice. He had a deep route today. Again, some would call it a 9, some would call it a 7 because it's just straight down the field. Bomb is another way. And Aiden O'Connell delivered a perfect pass. It was perfect. I mean, nobody could have intercepted it. Only person that caught it was Trey. It was right out in front of him, arms extended, and he dropped it. Now, you may say, well, come on, Hondo. If you don't think the guy's dropped a pass all practice, all camp, aren't you being too critical? Just bear with me for a moment because I think that's a germane argument. But he struggled with some drops last year, and it's important for him to turn that page. You may remember years ago the Giants had a running back, Tiki Barber, and he fumbled a lot. And so Tom Coughlin helped him change how he held the football, and he never fumbled again. Years later, I remember watching a game and he fumbled, and somebody turned to me and said, I was at the game, and somebody turned to me and goes, man, I don't even know how long it's been since he's fumbled. That guy's done so great fixing that. Nobody had an issue with it because you're going to fumble, but nobody had an issue with it. But if he hadn't had gone a long time without a fumble, would have raised a red flag. So I don't think it's a red flag, but it was a perfect pass on the money, and he dropped it. Now, I want to make it clear, very clear. He's had a great camp. I'm a buyer. I'm not selling on Trey Tucker, but it's my job to mention that stuff, and that's only being fair. And so there you go. The other is Devontae Adams. He had a perfect ball. I mean, a perfect ball thrown to him by Aiden O'Connell, and right on the money. Should have caught it. And to his credit, because he's so demanding of himself, he was mad after. Now, some people said that the ref called it a PI on it. I talked to somebody after camp and they said, no, it was a drop. I don't know if it was or not. I would think the person I talked to would know, but irrelevant. The point is, whether it was a PI or not, where the ball hit Devontae, he should have caught it. Now, you say, why are you mentioning this? I'm the one who said Devontae's the best wide receiver in the NFL. And I stand by that, and I believe that. But he has been an outspoken person about wanting the football, about get me the football. And there were a couple times last year where they got him the football and he dropped it. And today there was a perfect pass. Again, differing opinions on a PI, but it doesn't matter because where the ball hit him, he should have caught it. It's kind of like when a guy in basketball goes up, makes the shot, and gets fouled. Well, he may have got fouled, but he still showed that the shot was able to go in. He has to make those throws. You can't complain about not getting the ball enough. And then when you do, you're not making those. And that was a routine catch for a Devontae Adams. Now, if somebody said, you go out and make it, no argument. No argument. But I'm not Devontae Adams. And so I'm not hating on the guy. I think he's the best receiver in the NFL. I'm just pointing out him and Trey both had key drops today. And it goes back to a little bit last year when people talked about certain games where, Aiden's number were not the greatest, but when you go back and look at, there were some drops. And so again, I have tremendous expectations for Trey Tucker, and I do not believe he's gone backwards. So don't hear that. Nor do I think Devontae's gone backwards. But those are throws. Now, if it's one day at camp, who gives a rat's rear? You don't care. I don't care. But remember, my job is to point things out to you and say, let's watch this. And if I'm going to tell you the other day that Trey Tucker looks like he didn't drop a pass in all of camp, I then owe you the factual accountability to tell you he dropped one today that was like, now let's keep going though. I want to get into a couple other things, um, which are very, very important. Um, Jacorian Bennett, he's the starter. He's running with the ones. Um, again, this is a young guy. I told you all off season they believed in him. They had not backed down from him. They had not turned their back on him. Today, the pads came on and he still looked like he made a couple of plays now where, the wide receiver did a tremendous route. The ball was great and he just made a JB type play. That young man, I don't know that anybody's had a better camp. I think there are several guys that have had a really good camp, maybe even a couple that have had one as good as him, but nobody's had a better camp than him. Jacorian Bennett has shined, and the crowd today rewarded him. He got a lot of love from the crowd today. Great crowd today, and got a lot of love. He made some plays now, and I I respect um, another side of JB. So there was a play the other day, and he walks over to a rookie, DeCamerion Richardson, and just talks with him, helping a guy. I've seen it with Trey. I've seen it with just about everybody on this team. I've seen defensive linemen help offensive linemen. It's not weird in a bad way. It's weird because it's not normal. Phenomenal. But JB continues to shine. I think Raider Nation is going to be very when you look at that corners, you know, DCAM, to Cameron Richardson, just saying. That young man, I think he's played himself up. We're going to have to see more, but I wouldn't be shocked if he's not the fourth corner. But you look at Jack Jones, Nate Hobbs, and Jacorian Bennett, and that's special now. That's really, really special. And I think that they've heard a lot of people talk about, especially Nate and Jacorian. I don't think it's impacted Jack Jones at all, um, about how corners were probably the weakest part of the Raiders, and they took it personal. Jack Jones looks like an all pro. Every day you just know Jack's going to make a couple of plays, and you're like, wow, wow. Jack Jones may be the most physically talented player on this team. Maybe he just does stuff that I think it's a matter of when and not if he makes a Pro Bowl. He just makes plays. That guy has a nose for the football like I have a nose for a cheeseburger. Uh, it's just phenomenal to watch him. I was watching a play today where he was sneaking a little bit, and they run the play, and he was right there and broke up a pass. Now, I want to go back because Nate Hobbs said something yesterday that really stood out to me today, and I watched him closely. I wanted to watch it before I talk to you about it. And Nate Hobbs had a monster day yesterday and a really good one again today, and where he made some PBUs, pass breakups. And when he was asked about it, he was almost angry about it. No, I don't want to make pass breakups. I want to get the interceptions. And this defense now, that defensive backs, they're playing with an attitude. There is an old saying that everything reflects leadership. AP attacks, the team attacks. Luke Getzey has the offense attacking. You're going to see an offense with a mentality like the defense. Now, the way an offense attacks looks different than the defense, but doesn't mean they're both not attacking. So, again, very good day for JB. Uh, very impressed with him. Delmar Glaze, he got some reps with the one today. There's no concern about he's going to unseat Thayer, but he got some reps with the ones today, and I was very impressed. Now, I want to go back and tell you his story. You may remember he was considered an NFL, maybe a seventh round guy. But he went to the Pro Bowl where he got coaching on some bad technique and he was put more into a zone style, which the Raiders run. And after the second day of the Senior Bowl, he was the best offensive lineman at the Senior Bowl, period. He's going to be just fine. He is going to be just fine. Now, he got some reps against Max where Max just made him look silly, but everybody is made to look silly. Remember Trent Williams? I mean, there's a lot of Pro Bowl tackles that Max Crosby makes look silly. But he also got some licks in. And he's got competitive fire in his bones. And he's physical. I don't think it was far from perfect, and I don't think he's close to unseating Thayer, so don't read into this. But I was very surprised for his first NFL padded practice to get reps with the one at how he did it. I was very, very impressed. Extremely. I'm going to tell you, Coach Craig, the offensive line coach, I am really, really impressed with him the more I watch him. Again, he goes sprinting up to Delmar because it's a quick turnaround and gave some instruction, and Delmar got it. The next play, he corrected them. I'm not going to get into certain things because it's schematics, but he corrected it immediately. I'm very impressed with how good of a listener he is. Obviously, after day 2 of the Senior Bowl, when they changed his coaching, he clearly listened. So he's demonstrated that he was a good listener. But I was shocked at how quick he listened in between plays. It was just bam, 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 bam. Good day for Delmar Glaze. I'll tell you another guy that had a fantastic day. The problem is we've seen it from him in practices before. So it's a guy battling for that fourth wide receiver, Christian Wilkerson. Now, I think he's going to make this team. I think it's probably going to be him and Keelan Doss for 3 and 4, but I think there's some other guys that are pushing. But I was super impressed, as a matter of fact, with some plays Christian Wilkerson played, just showing off some great hands. He's going to have to do it when the bullets fly. But it would be unfair to the youngster if I didn't mention he had a very good day. Just punching his hands out, grabbing the ball quick, snagging. There was one catch where he literally had to move to, and you guys all know what a pick is in basketball. Great wide receivers and great corners will use their body because the ref usually won't call that for PI, where he used his body to pick, turned his hands at a different angle, and was able to just go get a ball. And in putting his butt out because he's lengthy, putting his butt out and going kept the corner from being able to go in front of him and knock the ball away. Christian Wilkerson was very impressive today. I think he's been good throughout camp. But to be very frank, I've seen him be good before. I wanted to see him with pads when it's live, when bullets are flying. Christian Wilkerson looked really, really good. Devontae, and it's not Devontae, Michael Mayer. This kid, now, first of all, I'm a big Michael Mayer guy. I like tight ends. I like that position. I like aggressive, violent guys. The Raiders have a very deep, I think they have the best tight end group. I think that chances are someone is three are going to make it for sure. And I think that's Harrison. And I think it's Michael. And I think it's Brock. I think Cole Fotheringham should have made the roster last year. So do they keep him as a fourth? There's a chance. Do I think it's probable? Probably not. But I don't think they're going to be able to keep him on the practice squad. And there's other guys there. They're just really, really deep. Michael Mayer today was blocking, and he was going against Matthew Butler, defensive tackle, and he pancaked him. I mean, he just drove him to the ground. And let me just say this. I have not done a lot of talking about Matthew Butler. I told you before camp started, he was a guy that had to have a fast start. He had to. He's done really well. Now, he has to continue with pads on. And so I tell you, yep, he got pancaked by Brock, but he still had a good day. I thought, if you want to know the frank truth, it has been, I mean, this is going into his third year, and today may have been one of his best practices. I think certainly better than anything he had last year. It was a good day for Matthew Butler, but Michael Mayer has come out, and that's why I'm talking to you about the offense on attack. It was a running play, and he just got his mitts on Matthew Butler and just drove him to the ground. What a play. Michael Mayer is special. I have enormous expectations for Brock Bowers. Enormous. I believe Brock Bowers is a generational talent. So nothing about what I'm going to say about Mayer is a diminishing thought of Bowers. I feel the exact same way about Mayer. And I told you when they drafted him, they had a top 15 grade on him. They stole him. If it wasn't for the injury and some other things I don't need to get into, nothing to do with him as far as in a bad way. He's just there. And if you didn't listen to my interview with him yesterday, make sure you go check it out. Not mine, but all of us at the press conference. Um, he's just at a different level. Michael Mayer is playing special. I am not a huge fantasy guy. In fact, I don't play it. I don't have time. But if you're a fantasy person, make sure you get Michael Mayer. Just make sure. I think he's going to have if he stays healthy, he's going to have a monster season. Again, I want to go back and talk about Bowers. I don't have enough good to say about him. Every rookie has rookie moments. He had a drop the other day I told you about. Not even Max Crosby, not every rep is perfect. But I don't know that I would say Bowers has had a rookie moment. Again, not perfect, but not a rookie moment. He looks like a veteran. And again, I talk to you about his speed every time. I know he's fast. And then he'll do something where I'm like, I mean, he ran by me today and I'm watching the line. He goes by me, and my first thought was, this is exactly what I thought. It's Trey moving. And I'm not saying he has Trey Tucker speed, but I looked and it was him. Just went by me so fast. Again, he is fast. Laube's quick. Now you can be fast and quick. I want to see that before I'm willing to anoint that of Laube or Bowers. But Laube's quick, Bowers is fast. Just, I mean, gone. I want to talk about a couple of guys. I'm going to talk about probably three more people, just because I know I've been talking a long time. Um, that I think it's important. Malcolm Kuntz absolutely looks the part. He is everything you expect him to be. That young man, after AP took over and released Patrick Mahomes, was a different player. And he was that way all off season. I told you there was no concern, but you still had to see it. Comes into camp. Malcolm Kuntz absolutely looks like a superstar. It was wow. And today he made a jump move today. Now, if you're not familiar with a jump move, it's where he goes up the field and then literally jumps into the gap and accelerated. I have not seen him with the jump move before. If he has had it, I don't necessarily say it was one of his most productive moves. So maybe that's why it didn't stick out to me. But he made a jump move today and was gone, just gone. And Pete Andrus, for those of you who don't know what that means, I've known the Pete family for a while. I covered Andrus's brother, Cassius, when he was in college at Michigan State. So I have occasionally called Andrus Cassius on several occasions, and it's not intentional, and I apologize about it. But Andrus, I think, was stunned. He's new to the team, and I think that Malcolm's going to get paid big money, and that young man is going to be really, really special. And I already like the kid, great kid, comes from a great family, and he's a wonderful person. He's very warm. He's caring. I'll tell you a great story about him. I watched him one time uh, leaving Allegiant, tired, beat up after a game. His arm is full, and there's this kid, and he sets everything down and treated that kid like he was just the only kid in the world. And you could tell he was just exhausted. You could tell, you know what, stopping and making this kid's day right now, I need to go home. And he didn't. That's called integrity. That's called embracing that I have an opportunity to have a really, really good, high profile public job. And I have it because of people just like this kid. And I will forever respect Malcolm Kuntz because of the person that he is, the man that he is, the character, the integrity. I will forever respect his parents who did not raise a football player, they raised a man. And Malcolm is just playing really well. And he continues that. But I want to talk to you about a guy that I mentioned one time on the podcast, and that's Charles Snowden, the defensive end. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Snow. The kid is 6'7". I'm going to double check something here, so bear with me if you don't mind. He is 6'7". I believe he's from the University of Virginia. I guess it doesn't really matter, but I would love to have that accurately for you. Anyways, Snowden has played tremendously well, and it's taken a lot of notice from his teammates, and it's taken a lot of notice from his coaches, and he's playing very, very well. He is out there making plays. He is out there. Yeah, he is from Virginia. I apologize, but I wanted to be 100% accurate. He's out there making plays. He's big, very, very physical. He's 2 inches bigger than Janarius Robinson. And I am not ready today to tell you that Snowden's making this team. I'm also not ready to tell you he's not. He has played really well. Thought he had a very good day today. And again, he did well the other day without pads. And I told you, and I'm just bringing it up. Do I think he was the best defensive lineman? No, he's young. But he has a want to that's very impressive. Okay. I mentioned Matthew Butler, but again, he's a kid that needed a fast start in camp. He's got it. I'm going to tell you a guy that I'm not disappointed in as a human, but I know that there was a lot of high expectations on this ball club for Janarius Robinson. I've talked to you about him a lot. He absolutely looks the part. He looks like he is that God made him out of granite, and he's a very good player. But he has a tendency, if he makes a mistake or somebody beats him, to let one play now affect two or three. I projected him to make this roster, and I'm going to believe that he's going to make that to correct that. Okay. But it is something now of which I'm going to be watching him closely. Again, I like the kid. It's nothing personal whatsoever, but you got to be dialed in, focused all the time. These jobs in the National Football League are so valuable. And you cannot let one play affect the next, and you have to be so dialed in. So I think that Janarius Robinson now is a guy that if I had to pick today, probably would make the team. But I think he's moving into bubble status. And Charles Snowden is saying, hey, I'm here. Take a look at me, please. I'd like a chance to play. Now, let's move to the final guy I want to talk about. I want to pull up his stats here. And this is Dalton Wagner. He is a second-year player, a tackle. He's 6'8", 325 pounds, and he got a lot of reps today. He's playing and playing healthy. Now, the knock on him the entire time he has been with the Raiders and back at Arkansas was your best ability has to be availability. He's been healthy this offseason. The pads are on today, and he made several attacking bam. I mean, there was one play where he came off the ground and grabbed the defender. Now, this is a defender that's going to make this team and took instant control of him. The guy wasn't getting away from him. I mean, first of all, you're running into Mount St. Wagner. And Mount St. Wagner was not letting him get away from him. So, Dalton Wagner, I see you. I see you. You keep doing what you're doing, young man, and you're going to make somebody's job very difficult when they start trying to figure out this roster. Because that's a young man that's playing at a very high level. And if he continues to play, now, is it high like Colton? No. Colton's a superstar. But he's playing very well. And he's going to get a lot of reps in the exhibition season. If he continues to play at this level, the Raiders will not be able to hide him on their practice squad. Won't be able to. So Dalton has been extremely impressive. All right. More pads coming tomorrow. I have highlights, of course. I already put some highlights up tonight. I know that this is, we're going at it. But training camp is on. It was a great day. I just want to take a quick second and I want to thank you for letting me be your beat reporter. I really appreciate it. Tonight I'm driving out of the parking lot and these gentlemen recognized me and asked me to autograph something, and I did, and got a chance to visit with them. And, I just told them, thank you guys, and got to take pictures with people today. Again, if you're at training camp, I would love a chance to meet you. You are never a bother to me. I may have to say to you, hey, Can I hit you up after practice? Because sometimes people ask me to do stuff during practice and I can't, I'm working. But before practice, all of it. And I love to meet you guys. I want to remind everybody I'm in the J lots. I got invited yesterday. I think it was to B lot. I don't remember, but somebody invited me to another lot. I don't know where it's at, so I don't know. Yeah, I told them get with me, let me know where it's at. Maybe I'll come to B lot. But I want to meet you at those regular season tailgates. I don't know that I don't think I'll go out to preseason just because my work schedule during preseason is really different. But make sure that first weekend I'll be looking for you in the J lot. Maybe later in the year I'll join somebody out in the B lots. But I look forward to meeting you guys. Please never hesitate to say hi or whatever. I love to meet you and talk to you. So from all of our team, we're producing close to 20 pieces of content a day. Every day we're pumping it out to you. Thank you guys and gals for letting me be your beat reporter. I really do appreciate you. Have a great day, everybody, and God bless you. And we'll see you again real soon.